Now, the Springboks are anything but down and out. This follows their disappointing 13-8 loss to Ireland at the Rugby World Cup in Paris, France last night. Although the South Africans are now expected to finish second in Group B behind the Irish, they remain optimistic that they can successfully defend their title. Earlier on the program, we spoke to rugby writer Dan Retief.
That it was an incredible game of rugby, a proper test match. You know, it's been described as what should have been the final of this tournament, and two really top sides having a go at each other. Close score. You know, as hard a test match, as tough a test match as you could get. Absolutely enthralling, very exciting. But as South Africans, very disappointing. We're all feeling very deflated. Because, you know, probably we, on the balance of momentum, it favoured the Springboks. We dominated the Irish line-out, we had an edge in the scrums, and we just played quite poorly. You know, apart from the fact that we didn't kick our kicks and left some points on the board, I felt that we didn't play the right kind of game, given the team that we had picked.
And Dan, of course, just zooming in back into the Irish, can you elaborate on the impact of Ireland's strategic gameplay and how it helped them secure this victory?
Yes, I was impressed with the Irish. Their first couple of penalties, they kicked them to the corners and said we'd have a line out. So I think Ireland immediately sent a signal to say, we're willing for the physical contact. If you guys want to play that way, we're up for it. Their defence was immense. And the one thing they did do is they didn't get as many chances as we did, but the one really good opportunity in R22, they turned it into a try. And that's what wins matches, you know. So I think the Irish will be feeling very good about this. I said in the build-up, you don't become the world's #1 side accidentally, and they showed exactly why that was. Where I was disappointed for the Springboks is that we picked that 7-1 bench, which was considered very controversial. So we picked a side loaded with forward. We were top-heavy with forwards. And the indication was that we were going to take the game to the Irish in a very physical way and use our forwards to dominate. That was possible, excepting having picked that side. We then played sort of backline rugby. It didn't appear to be a Springbok team. We didn't flood the breakdowns. We didn't get enough numbers to the breakdowns. We never formed the forward pods. And I felt what really needed to be done was to get into the Irish, to kick into the corners, make them feel our weight, and especially when we sent on our forward reserves to really take hold of the game and dominate Ireland. And we continued, though, to sort of avoid the contact, having picked a side aimed at making a lot of contact. So I found it very puzzling.
And Mr. Retief, just to take it back to South Africa's kicking game, you know, it proved to be a significant factor in the outcome of the match. How did this affect the team's morale and strategy during the match?
Yeah, it absolutely does. There's been a warning about goal kicking. You know, there's an old maxim that says very important test matches, Rugby World Cup games are won by good goal kickers. And if you look at the history of the tournament, there's always, in the teams that have won, there's been some outstanding goal kickers. And we have been missing our penalties through Manie Libbok especially. It's caused us to even try Faf de Klerk, who's not a known goal kicker. And we even had long kicks, you know, Hail Mary kicks from over the halfway line, which is not the kind of tactic we play in. What was a worry about Manie Libbok going into this game is that his ritual of taking a goal kick tends to be very slow. It takes a lot of time. And in this tournament, there's a thing called the shot clock. You have, from the time you indicate you're going to kick a penalty, you have 60 seconds. And I felt all along that Manie Libbok takes too long. His routine requires too much time. And then he gets into pressure because the clock is running down. The player, by the way, can see the clock. He knows what's happening on the clock. And then he has to rush his run up and rush to get the kick done. So the kick is not waved away and cancelled. And I think that's what causes him to then hook the ball away. And it's disappointing that quite a minor thing, you know, speed up hasn't been cured. So definitely going forward, the Springboks are now going to have to make some decisions. Do they get Handré Pollard back into the side? Because we certainly cannot afford to again lose an important game because we don't kick our goals.
Yeah, and of course, Cheslin Kolbe's try for the Springboks was quite a pivotal moment. Could you perhaps maybe analyze the play and its importance in the context of this game?
Yes, it was a very good try, a typically Cheslin Kolbe try, putting himself in the right position. A very good pass by Mani Libok, who set him up for that try. And I thought, okay, here it comes, because the way we set up that try was with hard driving, winning the ball back quickly, Faf de Klerk looking for his backline and getting to real backline players. And we just had too many people on the outside. And that was because we committed the Irish in the drive on the right hand side of the field, but we did too little of that. I thought once we'd done that, I thought, okay, boys, now get in there, take the play to the Irish forwards, commit them to the breakdowns, and leave those gaps out there. You know, even though by then we had all our reserves on the field, but it just shows that we can do that. But our whole setting up of the play last night was not the way we've become accustomed to the Springboks playing.
Now, I want us to zoom back onto our opponents now, because Ireland's position as the world's #1 ranked team is now reinforced. In your own opinion, what do they need to maintain this ranking and perform consistently at this level?
Yes, they're a very good side. They're a complete side. They can do all the tight phases. They're a very good defensive side. They have some outstanding players. Last night's man of the match, Bundy Aki, very deservedly the man of the match. He's having a fabulous season. But they've got so many talented players. Then they've got Johnny Sexton, their captain, who guides things in the middle of the field. He's their steering wheel, and he doesn't miss penalties that are meant to be kicked over. So their run is fabulous. You know, they've gone 15, 16 tests without a loss. You don't get to #1 without deserving it. You know, there's no other way. You have to beat the best sides in the world. So I think what's going to happen for Ireland now is they will probably top the pool that we're in with them, that's Pool B. They have one more tough hurdle to stay on top of that pool. They have to beat Scotland. And Scotland are better than people are giving them credit for. So that will be a tough one for the Irish. I expect they have the beating of Scotland, so they will top their pool. They'll go through to the quarterfinals as the #1 side, and then more than likely that will mean they will meet the All Blacks in the quarterfinal. The Springboks, we have to still play Tonga. I have a feeling we will beat Tonga. I'm in fact quite confident. Tonga have some very good players, but they don't seem properly fit, and I don't think they can cope with their high intensity. So the Springboks then goes through as the #2 side. That means that France, coming from Pool A, will be our opponents in the quarterfinal. And I think Ireland are pretty much confident that they can handle the All Blacks. They've got the pack that can handle the All Blacks. They've beaten the All Blacks in New Zealand, so they'll be confident of going through their section. Ours is going to be more difficult because we will play the French. So we got the home side at a packed stadium with a fervent crowd behind France singing the Marseillaise. Now that's going to be very hard. Although France now have lost their captain, Antoine Dupont. They've also lost their best fly-off, Ntamak. So that's pretty much they're playing without a rudder. And it'll be very interesting to see how France go without Dupont. You know, he's a Rugby Player of the Year. He's an outstanding scrum half, and everything that France did revolved around him. So it's a big blow for France. So can Ireland beat the All Blacks? I think so. They will advance. Can the Springboks beat France? I think so. They can do that. And there's now a possibility that the Springboks and Ireland could meet again in a final. And wouldn't that be something?
And I think, Dan, right now it would be very important for the Boks themselves to take it back to the drawing table. Let's speak about how do they build a momentum right now, because it's very important for them to continue to keep their eyes on the ball.
Absolutely. I must say the one side that can do that is the Springboks. They're a very tight bunch. They support each other, and they're the one team in the world that won the Rugby World Cup, having lost a game in the pool, as they have down now. They lost to the All Blacks in Japan and went on to win it. And I think the Springboks could take a lot of learning out of that test. There was more for them in that test, funny enough, than Ireland. Ireland were able to show that they're a good side and that they can hang on and beat the Springboks. The Springboks know they can play much better than they did. One mistake the Springboks made, for instance, I felt, is that right at the end of the game, when they had all their subs on the field, it wasn't very clear who the captain on the field was. And right at the end, they really needed a captain, especially in the last line out, the last scrum, for a captain to take charge and say to his team, whatever you do, don't go early, don't lose the scrum. Whatever you do, throw straight. Dion Fourie was called up for not throwing straight. That was a worry we had going to the game, a non-expert hooking thrower, excepting I didn't think it was that skew. I mean, I have to be honest, I hate whinging about referees, but the 50-50s did tend to go against us. I think the last maul was called too early. The ball was on its way out and we could actually have saved the test, got a draw, maybe with a kick, even have won it. But the Springboks know what they have to do. They've made some mistakes. They have to look at their tactics and go back to play the way they play best. And the way they play best is to look for dominance in the forwards and get on top in that way. And I'm sure they've learned a few lessons about just playing the wrong way against Ireland.